We're all taught that giving is this pure and simple virtue. It's just good, right? But what if I told you that the act of giving could sometimes do more harm than good? Well, today we're going to dig into that very paradox, using the Bhagavad Gita as our guide. It reveals how even the kindest act can, believe it or not, sometimes create what it calls karmic bondage.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to unpack that hidden paradox of giving. Then, we'll dive straight into the Gita's 3 very different types of generosity. After that, we'll see how this all plays out in the real world, explore the often forgotten role of the person receiving the gift, and finally, we'll tie it all together to understand what our source calls karmic intelligence.
All right, let's jump right in. To really get this central paradox, we have to start with a belief that, well, pretty much all of us hold about generosity. I mean, from the time we're kids, it's drilled into us. Generosity is one of the best things you can be. But the Bhagavad Gita, it offers a much more nuanced view. It's basically telling us to look way deeper than just the surface-level act. And this right here, this is the core idea. Giving isn't a one-way street. It's a dynamic, two-way exchange. What really matters is the why, the how, and the consequences for everyone involved in that exchange. So this brings us right to the heart of the matter. How on earth can an act we see as purely good, an act of virtue, end up creating things like attachment, obligation, and what the Gita calls karmic bondage? To answer that big question, the Gita gives us this incredibly powerful framework in chapter 17. It breaks down the act of giving, or Dāna, into 3 totally distinct categories, and it's all based on the consciousness behind the act itself. So the crucial point to get is this. It's not that you give that matters most. It's how you give, and more importantly, why you're giving. That consciousness is what gives the act its real karmic weight. Okay, first up is Sattvic Giving. This is the purest form, the gold standard. It's totally selfless. You're doing it simply because it's the right thing to do, a duty, with absolutely zero expectation of getting anything back. The whole point here is to diminish your own ego, not build it up. Next, we have Rajasic Giving, and this is where things start to get really tricky. This kind of giving is transactional. On the outside, it looks generous, but under the surface, it's driven by the ego's craving for something in return. Recognition, loyalty, maybe even a little bit of control. This is the kind of giving that creates those feelings of obligation and dependency. And finally, we get to Tamasic Giving. Now, this is the most destructive form. This is giving done disrespectfully without any real awareness of the situation. It actually ends up harming and degrading the person who receives it. Now, just look at how clearly this chart lays it all out. Check out the rows for intent and consequence. Sattvic Giving actually releases you from karma by shrinking that I am the great benefactor feeling. But Rajasic and Tamasic Giving, they do the exact opposite. They puff up the ego and just create deeper, messier karmic tangle. Okay, I know this can all seem a bit abstract, so let's bring it down to earth and see how this framework applies to situations we all probably recognize. Let's start with family dynamics. According to the source, what often looks like simple care and support can actually be a form of Rajasic Giving, a subtle tool for maintaining control. You know the deal, right? Financial support that comes with these invisible strings attached. You're expected to be grateful forever. Any disagreement is seen as a personal betrayal. The source is really clear here. That kind of giving doesn't liberate someone. It creates karmic bondage by keeping them dependent, not helping them stand on their own 2 feet. And this same principle doesn't just apply to families. It can scale all the way up to large-scale charity work. Aid can become seriously misaligned when it starts to be more about the donor's self-image than the recipient's actual needs. When aid is given without any real path to empowerment, or without genuine respect for the person receiving it, it can quickly slide into Rajasic or even Tamasic territory. The primary goal becomes burnishing the donor's reputation, and the recipient is just reduced to a passive number in a report. Now, here's a really subtle but powerful example from the source. Think about educational institutions that talk about knowledge as this noble gift, but operate on a profit-first model. The source argues that when an institution takes the moral high ground of being a giver of knowledge, but its main priority is revenue, well, it ends up transferring the burden of debt and stress right onto its students. So the very thing that's supposed to liberate the mind, knowledge, ends up binding the student in financial chains.
Okay, so up to this point, we focused almost entirely on the giver's side of the street. But what about the other half of this equation? The Gita suggests that responsibility here is a shared thing. So let's flip the script and look at the role of the receiver. So according to this framework, the receiver is not just some passive object. No, they have an active role to play. This means practicing discernment, really asking, does accepting this gift actually help me, or is it just creating an unhealthy obligation? It's about protecting their own dignity and making sure that whatever they receive is used responsibly for the right reasons. But, and this is a really important but, this responsibility is not absolute. It only exists in situations where the receiver has genuine choice and agency. They are never responsible for coercive, manipulative giving or for the harm that comes from bigger issues like structural power imbalances. So, with all of this in mind, how do we actually get better at giving? How do we find that balance? This is where our source brings in this fantastic idea of karmic intelligence.
See, karmic intelligence isn't about stopping giving altogether. Not at all. It's about taking a moment for some honest self-reflection before you act. It's about asking yourself these 3 simple but incredibly powerful questions about your ego, about the other person's empowerment, and about where the responsibility truly lies.
And that really leaves us with this powerful final thought. The ultimate test of giving isn't how much you give or what you give. It's about the impact on the humanity of everyone involved. Is your act protecting the recipient's dignity, or is it really just about protecting your own ego? That's the question at the heart of it all.